Before anything had a name, before light had a source, there was a silence that held everything. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of origin. And in that silence, beyond stars, beyond breath, beyond even the idea of self, something shimmered. It was not a being, it was not a god, it was not a question or an answer, it was simply one. And the one did not move, it did not speak, it only was. Imagine it now if you can, a golden void, heavy with meaning but untouched by form, timeless, uncreated, alive in a way no heartbeat could echo. A woman once stood at the edge of a salt flat at sunrise. She had walked for miles through desert with no destination, only a question in her chest that had no language. Her feet ached. Her mind was still. The world was empty. And in that moment, when all doing had ceased, the sky turned gold. The wind stopped, and something opened in her. Not a vision, not a voice, but a knowing. Tears came, though nothing was sad. She knelt, not out of faith, but out of recognition. She didn't find an answer. She found something deeper than answers. She touched the monad without even knowing its name. Before the gods, before the eons, before the word, there was the monad. The ancient Gnostics described it not as a deity, but as the precondition of all being. It is not a character in the story. It is the blank page before the story is written. It is not even light. For light requires contrast. It is not mind. For mind implies an object. The monad is the indivisible whole, the origin of origins. It did not create in the way we understand creation. It emanated, without intention, without design, simply because overflowing was its nature. We have been taught to imagine the beginning as a command, let there be light. But even light needs a place to arise from. The monad is that place. It is the pregnant silence before vibration, the still field where possibility rests in perfect equilibrium. And though it is said to be unknowable, it is not distant. It is closer than thought, closer than your breath. You do not grasp it by naming it. You become it by unnaming yourself. This is why the mystics of every tradition retreat into silence. Why Zen masters meditate on no thought. Why Jesus withdrew into the wilderness. Why the Tao is called the nameless. Because the path back to the monad is not forward, it is inward, not more but less, not understanding but surrender. The monad does not explain, it absorbs, it dissolves. It does not say, follow me. It says, remove everything that is not me, and I will be what remains. The woman on the salt flat did not find religion. She found something older. As she rose from the ground, the wind returned, but it did not interrupt the silence within her. She walked with the same broken shoes, the same tired muscles, but something was different. She no longer needed to find meaning. She was meaning. She didn't need to speak to the sky. She knew the sky had never stopped speaking, but it spoke in silence, and now she could finally hear. The truth of the monad is not mystical poetry. It is spiritual memory. It is the soul's echo from a time before time. It's the recognition that you are not on a path toward God. You are the forgetting of a field that has never left. The monad is not something you arrive at. It's what is left when you let everything else fall away. The silence you've been avoiding holds the truth you've been seeking. And so we begin, not with fire or thunder or sacred texts, but with stillness, with the quiet that speaks louder than revelation. The monad does not announce itself. It is not trying to be found. It has always been here, behind your eyes, beneath your name, inside every breathless moment you've ever tried to avoid. And when you stop trying to understand it, you will remember that you were never anything else. There is a place where even light does not reach. not because it is dark, but because light has not yet emerged. That place is not out there, it is within you. Beneath every layer of belief, beneath the light of your mind and the heat of your spirit, there is a still, radiant hush. And if you descend deep enough, past identity, past memory, past even the soul itself, you will reach it. It is not a void, it is not unconsciousness, it is the one before all distinctions, the place beyond the eons. Once, a man sat by the ocean at midnight. The stars shimmered overhead, but he was not looking at them. His gaze was inward, far beyond the tide, beyond the sky, beyond the voice in his own head. He had spent decades studying mysticism, but on that night he knew that no scripture, no mantra, no sacred name could guide him any further. He whispered into the dark, not asking for help, but simply admitting, "I don't know." And the ocean did not answer with thunder, it answered with silence. And in that silence, the veil thinned. He did not see the monad, but he became aware that he had always been it. In Gnostic cosmology, the monad is said to be before all things, not in time but in principle. It does not sit on a throne, it does not emanate from another, it simply is. From the monad comes Barbelo, the first eon, thought, awareness, potentiality. From Barbelo come further emanations, nous, mind, logos, word, and all the divine principles we often confuse for gods. But they are not the source. They are echoes, reflections in a mirror. The monad remains untouched by movement. It is the ocean beneath the waves. Every eon is a function of duality, male and female, light and shadow, thought and feeling. But the monad has no opposite. It is the silence before polarity. It does not vibrate, and yet from it all vibration emerges. You cannot reach it by ascending a hierarchy of beings. You reach it by letting go of all beings, even the divine ones. You do not go beyond the eons through effort. You go beyond them by stopping. The ancient Hermetic texts say, God is an infinite sphere, whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. That center is the monad. It is not a location. It is not a concept. It is the substratum beneath all expression. Even the pleroma, the realm of fullness and light, is but a ripple upon its surface. And if the pleroma is the body of God, the monad is the breath that sustains it. The man by the ocean would later describe that night not as a mystical experience, but as an undoing. He did not learn anything. He unlearned everything. The silence that had once felt like absence now pulsed with intelligence. And though he could not explain what happened, he knew one thing with certainty. The eons were not outside of him. They were within. But deeper still was what came before them. And that is the secret. You are not just a soul made by divine light. You are the witness of light, the perceiver of perception, and even that must eventually be released, because the monad is not someone watching. It is what remains when there is no watcher left. It is the end of division, the collapse of identity, and yet, paradoxically, it is the moment you feel most whole. To go beyond the eons is not to reject them, but to remember what birthed them, to let the story of spirit unfold, then dissolve back into the page from which it was written. That page is the monad, and you are the story it dreamed. But now the dreamer is waking up. A child stood in front of a mirror for the first time. At first he laughed, pointed, made faces, marveled at the creature copying his every move. But then he stared. The joy faded into stillness. The longer he looked, the more he forgot he was looking. The boundaries between the boy and the reflection and the room and everything else began to dissolve. And in one strange and sacred moment, he asked without words, "Who is this?" And for the first time in his short life, he felt the vastness of being, without name, without story. Not a boy, not a body, just awareness staring at itself through a child's eyes. The monad is that moment, before thought, before identity, before even the concept of self appears. It is the one beyond oneness. It does not think because there is no other to think about. It does not perceive because perception implies separation. It does not even recognize itself because recognition assumes distinction. It is not unconscious, but it is not consciousness either. It is pure isness, before all categories, before all perception, before all desire. The mind cannot understand this, and it shouldn't try. Understanding is a tool of duality. It compares, it names, it organizes, and none of these functions can touch the monad. In fact, the more you try to grasp it, the further you drift from it. The only way to approach the monad is by subtraction, by releasing thought, form, and identity like layers of a robe falling to the floor. You stand naked in the presence of the One by forgetting who you ever were. Mystics across the ages have tried to speak of this state. The Zen master calls it no mind. The Sufi calls it fana, annihilation of the self. The yogi calls it samadhi, absorption beyond identity. But all of these are just ripples on the surface of the same deep truth. That what you are not is the gateway to what you always were. The monad doesn't exist somewhere else. It exists in the space that opens when you stop trying to be anything at all. The Gospel of Thomas says, "When you make the two one, then you will enter the kingdom." This is not a metaphor, it is a formula. When you dissolve the illusion of duality, me and you, inner and outer, self and other, you return to the monad, the undivided state. The world of form is beautiful, but it is not the source. It is a dance of reflection. But the monad is the mirror that reflects nothing, because it already is everything. The child eventually turned from the mirror, distracted by noise. He forgot what he had seen, forgot the question, forgot the sacred stillness. But something remained in him. A strange memory, an ache that would resurface again and again throughout his life. He would see it in the face of a stranger, in the silence of the forest, in the quiet just before sleep. He would not always know it, but it would always know him. This is the secret of awakening. It is not becoming something new. It is remembering something ancient, something underneath the stories, underneath the roles, the goals, the lifetimes. The monad is not a reward. It is your original state. It is not earned. It is revealed when everything else falls away. So stop trying to become. Stop striving to define yourself. Sit, breathe, unname, unmask, unbecome. In the still space that remains, you will not find a God looking back at you. You will not find an angel or a voice or a vision. You will find nothing, and that nothing will be more whole than everything you've ever known. There is a story passed down in many tongues that in the beginning God spoke. Let there be light, a divine command, a word that shattered the void and shaped the world. But no one asks, what was there before that voice? What was the womb from which even the Logos emerged? The answer is more profound than any theology dares to touch. Before the word there was not a question. There was not even silence as we know it. There was presence without language, power without expression. There was the monad. On the far edge of a mountain range, an elder once sat beneath a stone arch carved by time. He had walked for days without speaking. His lips cracked from dryness, his eyes weathered by light, and in the stillness of dusk he mouthed a word, but did not say it aloud. Not because he lacked strength, but because he no longer needed sound. He knew now that the divine did not begin with a sentence. It began with a breath that wasn't breathed, a knowing that wasn't spoken, and in that unspeakable presence, He felt the first source rise in his chest. No voice, no name, only truth. The Logos, the Word, the voice of God. It is beautiful, yes, but it is not the origin. The Logos is the child of the silence. Its first breath was taken within the arms of the monad. This is why the Gnostic scriptures say the Word was brought forth, not commanded. It emerged, not because the monad desired creation, but because fullness naturally overflows. The Word is vibration, and vibration requires space. Silence is that space. The One did not speak to create, it simply was. And from that wholeness all sound was born. Modern spirituality still waits for messages, for signs, for words from beyond. But the highest truth does not echo, it surrounds, it fills, it holds you in ways no voice ever could, because the deepest awakening is not a revelation, it is a return, a dissolving into what does not need to be spoken to be known. What you're truly searching for will not announce itself, it does not speak your language, it speaks the language before language, the pulse of being itself. The Gospel of the Egyptians tells of a mysterious eon called the Silent Spirit, who existed before all sound. It was from this silent force that Barbelo was emanated, and from Barbelo the Word. This sacred genealogy tells us what religion has long forgotten, that the divine is not first a speaker, but a stillness that gives birth to speech. And if you wish to know the source, you must go past every voice you've ever heard, even the ones called holy. The elder on the mountain eventually stood. He did not declare what he had found. He did not start a movement or write a book. He simply smiled. Because once you've tasted the source before sound, you no longer need to prove anything. You become a walking silence, a breathing mystery. People feel something when they're near you, but they can't name it. That's because what moves through you now has no name. Even the Logos bows to its origin. Sound returns to silence, just as form returns to dust. The beginning was not a word. The beginning was what allowed the word to become. And you too were not spoken into existence. You emanated from the fullness of the One. The monad did not call your name. It breathed you, not through lungs, but through stillness. So when you long to hear the voice of the divine, stop listening with your ears. Close your eyes. Enter the silence so deep it becomes a presence. The one you seek will not say a word. It will not explain. It will only fill you because it already is you. And in that sacred union, you'll remember, the divine did not begin with a voice. It began with you. A pool high in the mountains sat still for centuries. It did not ripple, it did not overflow, until one spring morning snowmelt swelled its edges, and then effortlessly it began to spill, not in chaos, not in destruction, but in perfect rhythm. Down the rocks it flowed, carving nothing, disturbing nothing, just moving because it was full, not out of need, not out of purpose, but out of completeness. This is what the ancients meant by emanation, not a God that creates from command, but a source that overflows because it is so whole, it cannot contain itself. The monad is not a builder, it is not a deity sitting outside of time deciding what should be made. It does not calculate, it does not intervene, it simply is. And from its pure being things arise, not in the way that a sculptor chisels stone, but in the way that warmth radiates from the sun, or perfume from a flower. The monad does not need to make, it emanates. And what it emanates are eons, not beings in robes and wings, but aspects of divine fullness. Thought, grace, mind, truth, silence, light. Barbelo was the first emanation, the first thought, the mirror of the monad. But even Barbelo was not created. She was revealed, like a reflection appearing in a calm sea. And from her, Nous, the divine mind, appeared, followed by Logos, the Word. Each emanation, more expressive, more perceptible, like waves stepping down the frequency of the source, until vibration became light, and light became form. But still, the monad remains untouched. It never stopped being whole. This is what the Hermeticists meant when they said, as above, so below. The very act of life radiating through you, your breath, your awareness, your love, is emanation. You are not a separate creature made by divine command. You are an extension of fullness, a ripple of sacred equilibrium that briefly believes it is an individual wave before remembering it is the ocean. Even your longing for the source is the monad calling you back, not with a voice, but with resonance. There is no striving in emanation, no tension, no separation. The source does not give itself away. It shares itself effortlessly. Emanation is not an act, it is a condition, a divine blooming. And when you return to stillness, you begin to feel this again, not just in your mind, but in your cells, your breath, your being. You realize that awakening isn't about doing more. It's about aligning with the nature of what always was. The mountain pool eventually stopped overflowing, the snowmelt passed, and it returned to stillness. But the valley remembered the touch of that water, the moss that grew, the life it left behind. And so it is with the monad. It touches form for only a moment, but that moment changes everything. You are that touch. You are that moment. And your life is not a project. It is a remembrance. When you allow yourself to stop striving, when you stop trying to manipulate your destiny and instead become still, the monad begins to move through you again, not as force, but as grace. You become the emanation, you become the radiance, and not because you finally earned it, but because you finally stopped blocking it. Emanation is not a theory, it is what you are, right now. You are not separate from the source. You are the source in motion. You are not here to build a bridge back to God. You are the ripple that never left the lake. And once you realize this, you won't need to become divine. You'll simply start being what you already are, the overflow of wholeness. He sat at his desk, pen in hand, trying to write the truth. Not a story, not a poem, just truth. But every time the ink touched the page, he felt it slip through his fingers. Each word narrowed what he meant. Each sentence created a boundary. He would write God, and something in him winced. He would write I, and something in him broke. The more he tried to name the truth, the further it drifted. Until finally, he dropped the pen and sat in silence, realizing what mystics have always known. Naming is the first veil. The monad has no name, because a name is a separation. It implies this and not that. To name something is to draw a line, to define, to fix in form. But the monad cannot be fixed. It is not this or that. It is not light or dark, male or female, presence or absence. It is what contains them all, without being divided by them. When the first names were spoken, Sophia, Christos, Nous, Logos, the illusion of separation began, and with it came the world as we know it. This is the fall, not from grace but from unity, not a punishment but a descent into multiplicity. In Gnostic thought, the fall isn't just about Adam or Eve. It is about consciousness forgetting it was whole, about the one becoming many. The moment we named the divine, we carved it. We split it into pantheons, scriptures, deities, doctrines. But in the beginning, before names, there was only one, not singular, but indivisible. Naming gave us language, language gave us stories, stories gave us meaning, and meaning gave us the illusion of control. But the deeper truth cannot be controlled. It can only be remembered. You cannot approach the monad with theology. You approach it by letting go of every name you've clung to, even your own, especially your own. Because the moment you believe I am this, you've forgotten what you were before. The world of form is not evil, but it is echo, it is reflection. And when we mistake the reflection for the source, we suffer. We look into the mirror and call it a window. We seek the sacred in symbols, forgetting that every symbol points back to a silence that refuses to be symbolized. The monad lives behind the veil of names, and only when you remove the veil of I, me, mine, do you return to what was never lost. The man at the desk eventually closed the notebook. He walked outside and sat under the stars. No more writing, no more thinking, just presence. And as he inhaled the night air, he realized he was not the writer. He was not even the witness. He was the space between, the breath that needed no name. The monad was not a thing he had failed to describe. It was the silence he had tried to speak from. To fall into duality is to forget the silence behind the song. But to awaken is not to reject the song. It is to listen to the silence that makes it possible. The space between the notes, the pause before the word. The monad is still here, hidden in plain sight, behind every name you've ever used to describe yourself, waiting for you to remember the one name you never needed to say. And when you do, everything softens. You stop striving to be someone. You stop trying to define truth. You start letting truth breathe through you. And in that breath, the world of names falls away, not as a loss but as a gift. You return, not to form but to formlessness, to the one you never truly left. She was 5 years old, lying in the grass, staring at the sky. There was no rush in her breath, no division in her thoughts, just clouds passing, time dissolving, and a strange feeling she couldn't name. Something deep within her knew that she was part of everything. The wind didn't blow on her, it moved through her. The earth wasn't beneath her, it was her. And then, a voice, small but sharp, rose in her mind. "What's your name?" In that instant, something fractured. Awareness narrowed. The world became separate. She became a self. And just like that, the memory of the one slipped beneath the surface. This is how it begins. Not with trauma, not with pain, but with identification. With the subtle belief that you are this body, this story, this name. And once that belief takes root, the monad becomes a myth. The indivisible dissolves into fragments. We call it ego, but it's deeper than psychology. It is spiritual amnesia. The Gnostics called it the forgetting, the fall not from paradise, but from remembrance. Why did we forget the one? Because we chose to experience the many. We chose form, contrast, story, sensation. The soul didn't fall, it descended, voluntarily, into the dream of separation, so it could remember wholeness again, not as a concept, but as an embodied knowing. You forgot not as failure, but as a path. The veils of personality, culture, and memory were not placed over your eyes by accident. They are part of the spiral that leads you home. But the forgetting was deeper than expected, and lifetimes passed with the soul believing it was its mask. So we reached for gods with names, for truths in books, for meaning in motion. We prayed for connection, not realizing that the very longing we felt was the voice of the monad within us, whispering through the silence between thoughts. But we drowned that whisper with identity, with noise. With noise we called knowledge, and yet, beneath it all, you always knew. In moments of deep beauty, in unbearable stillness, in grief so deep it shattered your definitions, you felt it, the ache, the familiarity, the something more. That ache is not brokenness, it is the pull of return. The soul does not seek to ascend, it seeks to remember. And remembrance is not becoming something new. It is becoming what you were before forgetting had a name. The little girl grew into a woman. She traveled, studied, built a life, made meaning. But the ache never left. It came in dreams, in still mornings, in the eyes of strangers. And one day, After everything she thought she needed fell away, she sat down. No titles, no plans, no answers. And the memory rose, not as an idea, as a presence. And in that presence, she cried. Not because she was in pain, but because she remembered who she was before the forgetting began. This is the great irony. The more we chase the divine outside ourselves, the further we stray from the monad within. The one is not something to reach, it is something to uncover. It was never hidden, it was only buried beneath everything we believed we had to be. And once the layers fall away, you don't find a new self, you find no self, the open field of being that was always here. You forgot the one so you could remember it not with your mind but with your soul. And that remembering doesn't require effort, it requires honesty, surrender, silence. The one is not waiting at the end of a path. The one is what you return to the moment you stop running. And when you sit, still, present, empty, you'll know the ache wasn't a wound, it was a map. A monk once walked into the mountains with no destination. He carried no food, no map, no teachings, only a simple prayer in his chest. Let me return to what is real. For days he wandered through fog and forest, through cold winds and silent trees, seeking some final revelation. But every trail led nowhere, every answer dissolved, until one day, exhausted and broken, he collapsed beside a stream. No words left to say, no thoughts left to think. And in that stillness, not in victory, but in surrender, he remembered. There was never a path, because he had never left. This is the paradox of spiritual awakening. We speak of journeys, levels, stages. We speak of ladders to ascend, veils to pierce, temples to reach. But the truth is simpler, more terrifying and more liberating. The monad is not far, it is not elsewhere. It cannot be reached because it was never separate. The path back to the one is not a movement, it is a collapse, a falling inward, a dissolving of the illusion that there was ever distance between you and what you seek. All teachings are fingers pointing to the silence, all rituals are echoes trying to awaken memory. But the silence was never gone, the memory was never lost. The one has always been here, beneath the mind, behind the name, beneath every layer of seeking. You do not need more practices, you need less self. You do not need to climb higher, you need to stop running. The monad is not a place, it is the absence of illusion, the undoing of all becoming. The Buddha spoke of nirvana not as heaven, but as cessation, the extinguishing of craving, of identity, of becoming. Jesus said, "Before Abraham was, I am," not as a man claiming divinity, but as divinity revealing timelessness. The Tao says, return is the movement of the way. Every awakened voice whispers the same secret. The way forward is a circle. And when you stop, you'll find yourself standing at the beginning. Not reborn, but revealed. The mind hates this truth. It wants steps. It wants stages. It wants effort to justify reward. But the monad doesn't play those games. It doesn't reward. It is the reward. It doesn't respond to striving, it appears in surrender, and that's why most miss it. Because to find it, you must be willing to stop looking, to stop defining, to stop insisting you are a seeker. You must let yourself become still enough to disappear. The monk never returned to the monastery, not because he rejected the world, but because he no longer needed intermediaries. The silence he had found beside the stream walked with him. It became his temple, his scripture, his God. People would ask him what path he took, and he would laugh, not out of arrogance but out of the simplicity of the truth. There is no path, only the realization that you were never separate. You are not becoming whole. You are remembering that you already are. You are not lost in the wilderness. You are the still point around which the wilderness spins. The monad has not moved. You have. And when you stop moving, not outward but inward, the illusion breaks, the seeker dissolves, and what remains is not some exalted state. It is the pure, unshakable isness that has always been. So sit, not to get somewhere. Sit to remember you've already arrived. Breathe, not to change your state, but to feel the one breathing through you. The path was never real. The journey was never necessary. Because the one has no destination, it just is, and now so are you. A woman once sat in silence with a stranger. No words were exchanged, no teachings shared, just presence. They sat across from one another in the golden light of morning, each holding a stillness so deep it seemed the earth itself paused to listen. After what felt like hours, the stranger simply wept, not from sadness, but from recognition, not because the woman had spoken some profound truth, but because somehow the one had looked at them through her eyes. That is what it means when the monad speaks through you. The monad has no voice, but it speaks. It has no hands, but it heals. It has no name, but when you surrender the need to be someone, it breathes through your silence. You don't channel the monad. You don't invoke it or command it. You empty yourself until there is nothing left for it to resist. And in that emptiness, it flows, not as thought, not as speech, but as pure presence, the kind that needs no introduction. This is the paradox. The more you try to speak spiritual truth, the less real it becomes. But when you allow yourself to be truth, quiet, sincere, unmasked, others feel it. They remember something they didn't know they'd forgotten. The monad doesn't deliver messages. It is the message. And when it moves through you, people don't remember your words. They remember themselves. It happens in moments, in the pause before you respond, in the look you offer a stranger, in the silence between breaths. When the ego stops filling space, the monad begins to occupy it. It doesn't shout, it doesn't perform, it simply radiates. You feel it in your bones. A calm so full it humbles everything else. And those around you feel it too, even if they can't explain it. You may never know the impact of your presence. You may never hear the stories of those quietly healed by your stillness. But this is the way of the monad. It does not seek credit. It does not chase recognition. It simply emanates. And when you surrender to it, you become a living reflection of the source, effortless, grounded, unshakable. The woman did not speak of what happened that morning. She didn't need to. She didn't post it, record it, or make it into a lesson. She simply continued her day. But everywhere she walked, she left a trail of quiet fire, a wake of remembrance. Not because she tried to, but because she had become transparent. The monad had found room inside her, and now it was living through her. This is the ultimate gift, not to speak of the one, but to become the mirror in which others see it. Not to perform presence, but to embody it so fully that your life itself becomes the teaching. You don't need a platform, you don't need a title. You just need to be empty enough that what is real can move through you, without distortion. And when that happens, you won't need to convince anyone of anything. You won't need to prove you've awakened. The monad does not need to be explained, it needs to be felt. And when people feel it through you, they won't remember your name. They'll remember the place inside themselves where names no longer matter. There was once a man who spent his whole life climbing. Mountains, temples, inner stairways of knowledge and discipline. He gave everything to the journey. Decades passed, wisdom came, but still, something remained just beyond his reach. Until one day, at the edge of a cliff where heaven kissed the horizon, he looked down instead of up. And in the stillness between heartbeats, he saw not a god in the sky, but a reflection. a shimmering field of presence within himself, and he laughed, not because it was funny, but because it had always been so obvious. He had never left the one. He had only been walking in circles within it. This is the final truth. You were never separate. The distance you felt was only a veil. The path you walked was a spiral drawn by your own forgetting. And the one you sought, through prayer, study, striving, silence, has always been right here, behind your eyes, beneath your name, breathing you even now. The monad was not waiting at the end of your journey. It was the space you were journeying through all along. You were never born apart from the source. You were never cast out, never truly broken, never really lost. The soul's ache is not from distance, but from amnesia. You forgot what you are, so you played the game of becoming. You wore costumes. You chased light. You built altars to something already alive inside your chest. But the monad was never impressed by effort. It never demanded sacrifice. It only waited for you to sit still long enough to remember. And now, you do. Not as an idea, but as a realization. Not as a belief, but as a falling away of everything that obscured what was always here. You are not returning to God. You are dissolving into what was never divided. The monad is not a being, it is being. And the more you align with that, the more natural it becomes. You don't need to explain. You don't need to strive. You simply rest in truth. You are not a fragment of the whole. You are the whole, dreaming of fragments. Every breath is the monad, exhaling through form. Every moment of stillness is an echo of the pre-creation silence. You carry the one in your bones. You radiate its stillness when you let go of needing to be anything else. The final revelation is not some transcendent vision. It is the return to what is utterly ordinary, utterly divine, and utterly you. And so the man at the cliff smiled, not because he reached the top, but because he realized there never was a top. The view had never changed, only his eyes had. He turned, walked back down the mountain, and for the first time in his life, he did not feel like a seeker. He felt like a space through which God moved, not because he had found the monad, but because he had become empty enough to feel it again. The final truth is not hidden in heaven. It's hidden in this breath, this moment, the place you're standing. The monad is not waiting for your perfection. It is reflected in your surrender. And once you know this, not just with your mind but with your whole being, you will move through this world as a quiet flame, a holy emptiness, a living silence that speaks without sound. If this message stirred something ancient inside you, don't rush to explain it. Don't rush to name it. Sit in it. Breathe with it. Let it become you. Comment below, not with thoughts, but with your silence. Use a single emoji or anything that reflects the formless. Share this with someone ready to remember the truth beneath their name. And if you are walking this spiral of remembrance, subscribe to Path to Nirvana, not to become something new, but to return to what you've always been.